Star Trek just topped Enterprise's classic Carbon Creek episode. Star Trek Lower Decks just topped Star Trek Enterprise's classic episode, Carbon Creek. The spectacular Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, Episode 7, Fully Dilated, is a fish-out-of-water story where Lieutenants Beckett Mariner, Tawny Newsome, Devanna Tendi, Noel Wells, and Tlin Gabrielle Ruiz are stranded in a pre-warp civilization for a year. Fully Dilated cleverly borrows from several great Star Trek episodes like Star Trek, The Next Generation's The Inner Light, and Star Trek Voyager's Blink of an Eye, and it's a riff that exceeds Enterprise's Carbon Creek. Star Trek Enterprise Season 2, Episode 2, Carbon Creek, is a story told by Subcommander T'Pol Jolene Blalock of how her ancestor, Tamir, also Blalock, and two other Vulcans crash-landed and were stranded in Carbon Creek, Pennsylvania in 1957. The Vulcans arrived over a century before first contact and hid among the townspeople who were unaware they were aliens. The Vulcans were forced to adjust to primitive Earth until they were rescued months later, but Mestral J. Paul Boehmer elected to stay on Earth. In Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, Episode 7, Mariner even calls their predicament a Carbon Creek situation. Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, Episode 7, Fully Dilated, did an even better version of Enterprise's Carbon Creek. Mariner, Tendi, and Tlin were stranded on Delmer 3, a medieval pre-warp civilization, and they blended in thanks to Starfleet's surgical procedures to make them resemble the Dilmerians. Each lower decker had a distinct story. Mariner decided she had to live the way Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, did in TNG's The Inner Light, while Tlin applied her Vulcan brainpower to improve their lives, with no idea Tendi was competing with her over who is the better science officer. With its pink skies, sweeping vistas, eclectic townspeople, and villainous lurker, Snell, Eric Bauza, Dilmer 3 in Star Trek Lower Decks was more interesting than 1957 Pennsylvania in Star Trek Enterprise. Lower Decks' comedy was sharp, and the character interplay between Mariner, Tlin, and Tendi on their extended girls' trip was some of the best writing ever on Star Trek Lower Decks. Not to mention, Fully Dilated also brought back Brent Spiner to play the severed head of a purple alt-universe LT. Commander Data, who doles out sage advice to Tendi, Mariner, and Tlin. Plus, Star Trek Lower Decks accomplished all of this in just 25 minutes. The brilliance of Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, Episode 7 does not dilute the enduring quality of Star Trek Enterprise's Carbon Creek, which stands as one of the seminal episodes of the series. Carbon Creek exemplified the best of Star Trek. It told a compelling fish-out-of-water story where America in the 1950s was seen through the eyes of Vulcans forced to live in this era. Enterprise banked on Jolene Blalock to anchor Carbon Creek as Tamir, along with two Vulcans who were not Enterprise series regular cast members. Yet the drama was fascinating as the Vulcans fit into the town of Carbon Creek, Pennsylvania. Just as Tlin's improvements to Dilmer 3's agriculture resulted in a hair tonic that improved the Dilmerians' lives and made Tlin rich, Star Trek Enterprise's Carbon Creek contains an eyebrow-raising retcon to Earth history. Tamir sold Velcro to a company so that the technology is Vulcan in origin instead of a human invention. Without starship battles, aliens, other than the Vulcans, and the futuristic trappings of Star Trek, Enterprise delivered a standout milestone episode with Carbon Creek that remains a fan favorite. It's safe to predict Fully Dilated will also rank high among the very best Star Trek Lower Decks episodes. In the long history of Star Trek, many episodes have stood the test of time, blending speculative science fiction with deeply human stories. One such episode is Enterprise's Carbon Creek, which aired during the second season in 2002. This episode captivated fans with its understated but impactful tale of Vulcans living in secret in 1950s America. It stands as a prime example of Star Trek's unique ability to intertwine alien cultures with human history and explore humanity from an outsider's perspective. For years, Carbon Creek was celebrated as a classic. However, Star Trek's recent resurgence in the form of strange new worlds and discovery has led to the creation of a new episode that may just have surpassed Carbon Creek in terms of emotional resonance, storytelling, and the exploration of Star Trek's core themes. Carbon Creek is notable for being a character-driven episode that steps away from the primary arc of Enterprise. The story is framed by T'Pol recounting an oral history passed down through her family. She tells Captain Archer and Commander Tucker about her great-grandmother, a Vulcan named Timir, who crash-landed in Pennsylvania with 2 other Vulcans in the early 1950s. While waiting for rescue, the trio lives undercover in the small mining town of Carbon Creek. The episode is a subtle and poignant look at the blending of cultures, the challenges of adaptation, and the Vulcans' growing understanding of humanity. What makes Carbon Creek stand out is its exploration of the Vulcan ethos in contrast to human behavior. Timir, Mestral, and Strawn, the 3 Vulcans, struggle with human customs, values, and emotionality. However, the episode emphasizes that, despite their differences, there is much common ground between Vulcans and humans, particularly in their shared sense of survival and curiosity about the unknown. Mestral, in particular, becomes fascinated with humanity, even deciding to remain on Earth at the episode's conclusion, setting up a tantalizing possibility for unseen events in Star Trek history. For years, Carbon Creek has been revered as a unique offering in Star Trek. It tackled themes of cultural exchange, empathy, and the consequences of first contact in a way that felt intimate rather than grandiose. But now, with the expansion of Star Trek on television, a new episode has emerged that challenges Carbon Creek's status as a standout in the franchise. This episode, titled Echoes of Distant Time from Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, mirrors some of the same elements that made Carbon Creek successful, but elevates the stakes and the emotional complexity. Like Carbon Creek, Echoes of Distant Time centers around a Vulcan character navigating human culture in the past. This time, however, the story delves deeper into the nuances of Vulcan philosophy and the ethical dilemmas of interfering with primitive civilizations. The episode begins with Spock, played by Ethan Peck, experiencing strange dreams that link him to a Vulcan ancestor who lived on Earth centuries before the founding of the Federation. As Spock explores the memories embedded in his Katra, he uncovers a hidden chapter of Vulcan history, an ancient Vulcan expedition to Earth during the Age of Exploration in the late 16th century. Unlike the Vulcans in Carbon Creek, this expedition was not accidental, but part of a secret Vulcan mission to study early human societies. The ancestor, named Cyril, lived among a small coastal town in what is now northern England. His mission was to observe human social structures and technological progress, but the episode takes a dramatic turn when Cyril becomes emotionally involved with the humans around him, particularly a young woman who reminds him of a long-lost Vulcan love. As the town faces a deadly outbreak of plague, Cyril is torn between his Vulcan directive of non-interference and his growing empathy for the humans who have come to trust him. Echoes of Distant Time expands on the ideas introduced in Carbon Creek, but pushes them further by exploring the internal conflict Vulcans face when confronted with emotional attachment. Where Carbon Creek saw the Vulcans as largely detached observers, Echoes delves into how even the most disciplined Vulcans cannot fully resist the pull of their emotions, especially when faced with life or death decisions. This heightens the stakes and makes the episode not just a commentary on cultural differences, but a meditation on what it means to be Vulcan. Additionally, Echoes of Distant Time uses the setting of 16th century Europe as a mirror for contemporary issues, much as Star Trek has always done with its historical or alien settings. The town's struggle with the plague echoes modern fears of pandemics, and Cyril's internal battle over whether to break protocol and offer medical assistance resonates with ethical dilemmas around intervention in global crises today.